When Nintendo Switch Online was first released in 2018, there was a lot of controversy surrounding its worth. After years of free online play with Nintendo games like Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros., it seemed crazy that we would suddenly now need to pay for this service. So in order to give more worth to their online service, we saw NES games being included with Nintendo Switch Online subscriptions. Since then, Nintendo have not only continued to add more NES games to the Nintendo Switch Online catalog, but they also have added more classic systems to the mix. Super Nintendo and Game Boy games, as well as N64, Game Boy Advance, and Sega Genesis games were added to the Nintendo Switch Online subscription and the Plus expansion pack respectively. Plus, with the addition of GameCube to the Plus expansion pack exclusively on Switch 2, Nintendo Switch Online sure does include quite the catalog of classic games. The online service also gives you access to some of Nintendo's premium DLC for their Switch games, including Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Designer, Splatoon 2 Octo Expansion, and even the massive Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, which doubles the number of courses from the base game. And of course, you also get some exclusive features with Nintendo Switch Online, like the ability to store your game's save data in the cloud so that it's always backed up, the ability to access the Nintendo Switch Online mobile app, and the special offers that are available in the My Nintendo store, which have mostly been classic controllers, but also more recently, the opportunity to be randomly invited to pre-order a Nintendo Switch 2 directly from Nintendo. All of this comes at a relatively decent price. At least at the time of this recording, Nintendo Switch Online costs $20 per year, and the Plus expansion pack costs $50 per year. This is compared to both PlayStation Plus Essential and Xbox Game Pass Core coming in at over $70 per year. We'll see just how well or poorly this ages in the future. While maybe not the craziest online subscription service, I do think that Nintendo Switch Online has proven itself to be worthy, especially with the Plus expansion pack including so many classic games. And with the Nintendo Switch 2 right around the corner, let's talk about 5 things that I love about the Nintendo Switch. Well, let's take a step back and look at the Switch system as a whole. Nintendo struck gold with the concept of the Switch, especially following the Wii U, which required an entire dissertation just to figure out what the console's gimmick was. It's nice that the Switch's main purpose can be summed up in a single sentence. The Nintendo Switch is a home console that you can bring on the go. Easy as that. And overall, the Nintendo Switch did a darn good job at successfully pulling off its concept. I think we can all relate to the first day that we had our grubby little hands on the Switch. So much of that time was just spent docking and undocking the system just to see the magic of, okay, the game is on this screen, and now it's on this screen. And what better game to truly show off that magic than The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? This brand new Zelda game that, for the first time in the series, had a whole open world to discover. So not only were we impressed seeing it run on our TVs, but we could also bring this gigantic world on the go. It made me feel really nostalgic for the Nintendo DS. I remember how revolutionary it felt to see a 3D Mario game run on a handheld that I could play anywhere. Obviously today, looking back at Super Mario 64 DS, Jesus Christ. But with the Switch, sure, they still had to cut a few corners in terms of graphical powers in order to keep this thing from imploding, but for the most part, this is pretty much the same Breath of the Wild experience you would get playing on the TV, now running on a handheld. 5-year-old Chase's jaw would have dropped to the ground. As the Switch generation continued, the floodgates were wide open for what was possible thanks to this whole concept of home console on the go. Not only did we see bigger and bigger games playable on the go, such as Skyrim and The Witcher 3, but we also saw even more unique places in which people could play their games. Long plane rides were absolutely revolutionized thanks to the Switch. We could all release our inner rooftop Karen by bringing our Nintendo Switch to outdoor parties. And who remembers Nintendo Switch in zero gravity? That was wild. But for those times when we're playing on the TV, the gods of Nintendo blessed us with the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. This controller is one of the god tier controllers, especially when compared to the included Switch controllers, the Joy-Con. I mean, to be fair, there are actually some very specific instances in which the Joy-Con actually perform better than the Pro controller. The main glaring issue with the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is this sad D-pad, which is one of the worst things to happen in my life since my parents got divorced. It's so stiff and inaccurate. Pressing in one direction can end up inputting a completely different direction, which can be really frustrating for games such as 2D platformers, or when I'm just trying to give my team a booyah in Splatoon. It's really strange because for the company that introduced the D-pad, and we've gotten the best D-pads of all time with the NES, the SNES, and even the Wii U, you would think that they would be able to create at least a somewhat competent D-pad. So for games like Fortnite Festival or Tetris 99, which rely on you putting in separate directional inputs, the Joy-Con are actually the more ideal controller to use, at least in my opinion. They allow you to have completely separate directional inputs so that you don't accidentally hard drop a piece in Tetris, for example. But hey, in regards to pretty much every other aspect, this is a really great controller. The massive face buttons are the star of the show. They're just asking to be pressed. They don't feel super clicky like the Joy-Con buttons, yet they aren't super mushy like, say, the Wii U gamepad buttons. They're just right in the amount of travel that they have, and just the overall feel of pressing them down. For so many types of gameplay, whether it's racing in Mario Kart, button mashing in Mario Party minigames, or even just skipping through the dialogue in an RPG, these face buttons work fantastically. You also have these massive control sticks which, following the weird placement on the Wii U Pro controller, are now placed diagonally, similar to Xbox controllers. And yes, while they are prone to drift, as is pretty much every controller with analog sticks, they at least do feel very good to use. Compared to the Joy-Con control sticks, which feel very rigid and don't allow for much movement, the Pro controller feels so smooth and so free, which is also everything I wish I could be in life. And the way that your thumbs just naturally and easily navigate towards them and rest on them, it's as if they were meant to be together. Playing shooter games, racing games, and 3D adventure games all feel so great thanks to these two control sticks. Meanwhile, with the triggers, while they aren't analog, meaning that you don't get different levels of pushing them down like controllers for the PlayStation, Xbox, and even Nintendo's own GameCube, they do still work fine for the most part. While it's a bit of a bummer to not have the precise levels of spraying water in Super Mario Sunshine, or different levels of braking or drifting in Mario Kart, I don't think it necessarily ruins any games for me. In fact, there are actually some instances in which I prefer the digital triggers of the Pro controller. For example, spraying bullets everywhere with a shotgun in Fortnite requires less motion of your finger having to press the triggers. Similarly, spraying the paintbrush in Splatoon is made much easier thanks to the simple button press feeling of the triggers. Plus, the Nintendo Switch Pro controller also packs in nearly all of the features found in the Joy-Con. Motion control, amiibo support, and HD Rumble are all here. But it doesn't have the infrared camera, so I guess it's actually a 0 out of 10 for me. Let's talk about actually powering on this system. The Switch features the cleanest operating system we've ever seen for a Nintendo system. Yes, I do think it would be nice if we could have more personality with the Switch's operating system, i.e. themes, but the Switch's operating system is just so quick, snappy, and straight to the point. Especially coming from the sluggish operating system of the Wii U, where I could literally meet my soulmate, become married, have a child, and watch them graduate by the time I just opened the system settings. It was so refreshing to have this operating system just be like, hey, you want to pair your controllers? Here you go. No loading screens, no long animations, just straight up, here's what you want and go. I also love all the little sound effects that come with the Switch's operating system. With the OS being so stripped down and simple, it's nice to have just these tiny elements of satisfying sounds to give you some kind of feedback when you press a button. Maybe I'm just a weirdo, but the system settings sound effects scratches the auditory part of my brain so nicely. It's also nice that Nintendo continued to update the OS as time went on. The addition of groups was really welcomed. Granted, it's not as user-friendly as folders on the 3DS, but it's nice to at least have these easily accessible groups of games and software so that you don't have to constantly scroll through your entire list. So with the Switch's operating system in general, while it's not as bubbly and lively as previous systems, I think the point Nintendo was trying to make here is that you're here for the games and we want to make it as easy as possible for you to just hop right in. Let the games speak for themselves. And speaking of which, as we all know, the most important part of any video game console is the AC adapter. Look at this beautiful AC adapter, truly the heart and soul of the system. Oh yeah, and the games are pretty cool too. The Nintendo Switch was home to such award-winning games as The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and many, many more. Because not only did Nintendo come out swinging with their well-known high quality, but they also rocked it in quantity. Throughout the last 8 years of the Switch, it felt like we were getting new games from Nintendo every single month. It's been one of the most consistent libraries I think we've ever seen from Nintendo. However, there is something to be said about the price of Switch games. And if you do want to hear about all of my gripes with the Nintendo Switch, including game pricing, check out the video below. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys love most about the Nintendo Switch? For now, thank you for watching. Thank you so much to all of our members. My name is Chase and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.